And I see it as kind of like a metaphor of stripping yourself from all the baggage, from all the historical things in your life, all of the people who are trying to bring you down, from those insecurities, from those bad habits, from that procrastination, from all of these things that are keeping you and depleting you of your true essence. Letting go of that. And that's a very, very hard thing to do. For myself, like I said earlier, it's been bad credit, student loans from undergrad, quitting a job that was helping me pay those, and then getting into further debt with a job that didn't pay enough. And overcoming that, eliminating that debt, that's one of the goals that I've set on my life. But it's been through the mentorship that I spoke about earlier. It's been through the resources that I've been learning about. It's been through those other avenues of creating revenue that helps us to still produce while we're eliminating these things from our lives. So all of this really ties together in a really unique way, because we gotta find that balance. We gotta make sure that as we're walking on this journey, that we're not being dragged down by all this other stuff that is making us move slower than we know we could. That's making us get to a point where we're halting and stopping in our lives and not being able to progress. And one of the biggest things that has been really hard to let go of, and I promise I'm almost done, one of the biggest things that we often have to rid ourselves of is fear. Fear will kill us. It is, in my opinion, something that is legal, something that is fatal. And for a long time, and in my own life, a lot of the bad choices that I've made, especially financially, have been because of fear. And I don't mean just fear, like the typical sense of fear, like fear of failure, but many cases is fear of our own potential. It's fear of our own success. It's fear that's been evoked from the fact that people in our lives have told us that we can't do something, that we are not good enough. The people who have said things, and I think about a friend when I say this, the people in our lives, sometimes even our parents, who have maybe not gotten to a place in their own lives, and so they discourage you from pursuing your dreams and your visions and your passions, and they tell you things like, oh, well, you're not going to make it. Oh, our family, we don't do that. Or in one of the clients that I had at a practicum site this past year, I heard a kid's mother tell him, she didn't even have any care that I was around, that other people were around, but she told him, you are nothing but your father. You're just like him. You ain't gonna be nothing. You're just like your dad. And that broke my heart, because when I was a kid, there were a lot of friends in my life who I heard parents tell them to. And the fact that we're still telling our kids, even at younger ages, that they're not going to be anything, of course, that's going to increase their fear about life. Of course, that's going to make them feel like, oh, they're not worth the positions and worth the jobs and worth the education that they could pursue, or worth the opportunities that may be open to them. Of course, that's going to make them turn away from the things that can help them move along. So breaking that fear is big. And like I said, fear is fatal, but fear is also a liar. And in many cases in our lives, we've got to transition that fear into faith. And by faith, I don't necessarily mean in a religious or spiritual sense, but faith in the sense that you believe so much in yourself, you believe so much in your potential, that all of the naysayers you're deaf to it. You're blind to what other people have to say, because you know your vision and you know what you're able to do, and you're equipped and you're dedicated and motivated to master it. So, replacing that fear with faith, is something that may be the first step for a lot of us in this room. And then as a final point, be willing to sacrifice. When I first started talking up here today, I talked about, the sacrifice of standing here before you instead of going home this weekend and being with my family for my grandfather's funeral. But in this definition of sacrifice, I also have to think back to my mother, who I talked about at the beginning of all of this as well, and her willingness to sacrifice for my family. And her willingness. My mom had me when she was 22 years old, and she was still young. But, that sacrifice that she was willing to make for my big brother and myself really taught me a lot. And I feel like we often have to ask ourselves, what are we really willing to sacrifice in our lives in order to get to the place that we really want to be? And one of the quotes or mantras that I live my life by a lot is, be that which you would become. And I'll say it again, be that which you would become. Start now, living a balanced life and living the good habits of the person that you foresee yourself being 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Yeah, we may not have the luxuries that we may envision in our head, but we can still have those capabilities, those good habits, those skills, those knowledge sets. And getting to a point where we're increasing our financial knowledge, our social knowledge, our educational worth throughout the years, I think that will allow us to get to that point. So I'm going to wrap it up and just leave it with this. What are we willing to sacrifice in order to get to where we want to be? What are the things that we need to master in order to get to the place where we need to be? What are the things that we need to get rid of from our lives in order to progress without carrying the load and the baggage of yesterday? And throughout the day, we're going to learn a lot about how to do this. I'm quite sure there's like a session about how to pursue buying a house, and it's like the black picket fence or something. How to get rid of that student loan debt. I will be in that session, so I hope to see some of you guys there too. But the theme of this whole day is that it's your money, it's your future, or your money, your future, and it's very true. So if it's your money and if it's your future that we're talking about, why shouldn't you be the master of that? Thank you.